So our next topic is the PC Master Race is about to take over the FGC. So also, if you've been on FGC Twitter or any FGC spaces for a while, you've seen that there has been just this takeover, led by the mighty NYC Furby Saban himself, um, of bringing PC to these events. So it was announced before Evo happened that Defend the North was actually going to be ran exclusively on PC, MSI PCs, for the games that could be on there, that they could put on there. So that's amazing. So I actually spoke with Furby today, and he was saying like, yeah, he's optimizing everything and gonna make it happen. So that's at Defend the North. East Coast Throwdown is actually doing the Capcom Fighting Collection. They're doing that tournament on PC. Then the NA versus EU, that was ran on MSI PCs, and then NYC Furby has taken upon himself to make the Brooklyn Arcade, where next level. I think it's either, I don't know if they're the same thing. Somebody on NYC is gonna come on here and like trash me for not knowing, being in the FGC, but whatever Furby is doing, I don't want to get the names wrong, just got that kind of respect for it. But he is basically running his stuff on PC. They're doing UMVC 3 tonight, actually, 144 hertz monitors and stuff like that, optimizing the mess out of it, playing some UMVC 3. So it seems like this takeover is happening. Now, I've listened to a podcast before we actually started doing this podcast, and the TO actually said that he talked with Furby about how this could be possible, because he was worried about the amount of money. Because before, it's like, man, for the price of a PC that can run all these games, I might as well go buy 2 or 3 PS4s. Might as well. But he said Furby broke it down to him. He didn't give all the details, but he was basically saying that Furby made it make sense, made it make financial sense.
Oh wow.
Alex Valle was also in that same podcast, and he said the only thing that he could see that was wrong with it is just transporting all these things to make it something that's going to take over the whole FGC. Now, also, there is probably going to be some competition with that, because we know Evo is now ran by Sony. So Sony is trying to have a deep hand in the FGC, and they're already talking about how they're trying to optimize PS5s and all this other stuff, blase, blase. So you kind of see how the NA versus EU thing had to be its own thing, with them saying, hey, we're going to come in and sponsor it by MSI and all this other stuff.
Right.
So starting with you, King, what is your thoughts on this, seemingly PC takeover that's starting to rise in the FGC?
I feel like it's almost like the end of an era, man. Like I remember fondly going to like video game club. We were in college, taking our consoles in there. Everybody had their personal consoles. We play our fighting games on there. Have our little small TVs. But as time has moved on, players and individuals have wanted to have, especially competitive players, because I feel like the competitive community from, I guess I can safely say we can call us 09ers. We're pretty much 09ers, right? Like 09 on, um, has grown pretty freaking large over that span of time. And as a result, people want a more competitive experience out the gate immediately. People don't want to play stuff with any type of huge delay, input lag, any type of imbalance. They don't want it. So it feels like going to PC was the logical conclusion, because PC is becoming better and better optimized towards fighting games. Fighting games seem to just run better on PC. And I'm not sure if it's a PS5 issue with some games having some delay as well. I've heard some things about that.
Yeah,
But
it's
I guess it's
PS5
just a lot.
basically.
Yeah. So I guess it feels like the logical conclusion that we should transition to this era. I just don't know. I just didn't know how long it's gonna, like. I guess personally, I just wonder like how the transition is going to work for everyone. Is it going to be embraced by everyone? Is going to be some pushback? Can every community afford it? Just like you said earlier, like the logistics of moving these PCs around. And I guess it just depends on like if everyone kind of buys into it. If we can get every major tournament into the PC kind of bracket, then it can happen. Personally, I'm okay with that, because recently I got my own. I got me a new PC, like
Oh,
gaming laptop.
congratulations.
Yeah, gaming laptop. Thank you. And I got Rob's Aether on there. I just got Rushdown Revolt very recently. I'm gonna try that out. And I've been kind of looking forward to try to play some more PC games. Friend of the show, Mr. Gaming Lift. What you about to say, Rexon?
Now you're somebody who actually has both. You have a gaming PC and a PS5.
Yes, I do.
So
PS5 as
your
well.
take
Yep.
is pretty lit. So how do you like which one do you feel like you enjoy playing on more?
So here's the thing, and this is a great point that you're adding on. All my friends are still on PS5 or PlayStation 4. So when it comes to playing anything competitively, like with my friend group or people I like to play with, I'm still going to be playing mainly on that. Because I mean, as much as I like fighting games, I like playing with my friends just as much. And like having that group to play with kind of eggs you on, allows you to want to play more, be motivated more. And as we get older, you guys know this, our time is kind of divided. We have things to do.
Yeah.
So I can't play all the time. So I got to divide my time between choosing whether to play sometimes on PC or choosing to play on PS5. And if all my friends still on PS5, I'm play on that. However, I am kind of slowly transitioning to learning to play on PC games and playing on that. So I'm interested in that as well. So that's why I was wondering about the logistics of it. And that's a great point right there. Is that does the big FGC as a whole, does it have a big enough PC presence to kind of support this transition? Or will the FGC over time kind of like just over time just start frolicking more to the PC to get those fighting games? And then of course, like you said, with Sony having Evo, they're gonna try to keep it on PlayStation as much as possible. They're gonna have big prize pools. They're gonna try to attract them with the big tournaments. Whatever new fighting game comes out, they're probably gonna try to get some more exclusive fighting games. And then there's gonna be some fighting games you can only play on PlayStation, so PC won't be an option. So that's gonna be kind of some of the hurdles we'll see with this transition. Overall, though, I think getting the best optimized experience overall for competitive players is most important. Me, it's kind of like I like competitive games as a casual person. I'm probably going to still be playing mainly on my PlayStation 5. However, I am myself trying to play some stuff on PC, so I'm okay with either way.
Yeah, I gotta admit, man, like as far as like the PC, like where all my friends play, I'm on almost the opposite end of the spectrum. Like most of the
Yeah.
people I know will like play on PC. And it's it's a different experience, like playing on console, because I just started playing DNF Duel like a little while ago, and I'm playing it on PS4 and PC, like interchangeably. And even like back when I was playing like on King of Fighter 15 between like PC and PS4, like the performance is like extremely obvious. Like the difference between like it's night and day, man. So I mean, I think like most of the times when people are like playing fighting games, what do they want? Like they want, like you were saying, the optimized experience. And the thing about it is like you also have like the familiarity, I guess, of using a console. Like everybody
Yeah.
knows what they're getting when they buy a console. With it, like they're all standardized, because when you're building like PCs, like when people normally, if you're not like like a big time developer or something like that, most of the time these are just people bringing their PCs, which aren't standardized. They all have different builds, they have different specs. So I mean, one PC could run the whole time, like the whole tournament with no problems, but another PC could like completely lose its mind when you plug and unplug too many USBs. Like they'll be like,
That's true.
I don't understand what's happening. Like like that kind of stuff that happens, man. Like
That's true.
it's happened to me. Like so, so. But as far as like Alex Valle talking about like transporting rigs and stuff like that, well, it all depends on what kind of rig we're talking about, right? Because technically speaking, like you can have a really like small, really powerful PC that basically looks like, for all intents and purposes, like a console. Like it's basically the exact same size, but it might be just as good or even better than like a PS5, So
Yeah.
I think that like when it comes to that, I don't think that's really as big of a problem as anybody might think it is. I think like if you're thinking like traditional tower builds, then it's like, oh yeah, man, how are we going to move this?
Not to mention that PS5s are humongous now. So like
Oh,
that argument's kind of going out the window. I have a PS5. That thing is humongous. That's a big console.
is it bigger than the PS3?
Maybe I got to do a side by side comparison. It's a big console, man. It's big.
Yeah, y'all held it up on no level cap, and I was like, that thing is that man like it reached its final form.
Wow. Yeah, man. So
But
there you have it. Like there are consoles that'll be smaller than a PS5, PCs that are smaller than a PS5 that run better than a PS5 that you can have an optimized experience on. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like you're definitely getting almost the best of all worlds in that scenario. It's just that, especially when you're talking about having it done by like MSI, they're definitely going to standardize all of the builds. Like there's going to be no real discrepancy between one build and another, unless it's like an older model, which of course that's expected. So like they're going to have like their own deal, probably their own deals to get the parts, and like they're going to be able to make this happen. So it all depends, I guess, like whether they decide to go for like a bigger or smaller build. But if I were them, I would just go for like the small I saw one at DreamHack Dallas back in June. At the beginning of June, this guy I hadn't seen in years. His name was Jordy, and he builds those kinds of PCs. I mean, they are like, it's like almost like an encyclopedia. Like that's how small it is, and it's like, and it runs games just as good as my PC right here. I have all new, mostly new parts in this right now. And his PC, like little PC, runs things almost as good as this does, which is ridiculous. So I don't know, man. I think like definitely the PC, but there is going to be pushback, I think like, like Keem was talking about, I think there's going to be some kind of pushback. Like stuff like that isn't easily adopted. It wouldn't easily be adopted in any genre of game, I don't think. You know what I mean? If everybody's used to playing on one platform and they're like, okay, here's a new platform, you got to get used to it. And it's like, well, I don't want to get used to it. I like what I've been using this whole time. So it's all about like people trying, I guess what it comes down to is everybody like should be trying to meet each other halfway, Yeah. And I mean, like, let's be honest. To be 100% honest, pretty much every console, and my buddy Will has said this many a time, is like pretty much every console is a PC already. All we're doing at this point is just removing the veneer, like getting rid of the veneer and just saying, this is it. Here it is. It's consoles by MSI, basically, at this point. That's what it is. MSI, Republic of Gamers, I mean, you could basically at this point be like, okay, now we have like standardized like console PC variants for like every kind of like developer, Asus, MSI, Dell, even though their stuff is kind of trash, but whatever. And like, it's
we're not gonna get that sponsorship out.
That's a good point. That's a good point though too. I like to mention sponsorships. Maybe one of the good things that could come out of this is that if they can really get behind get the gaming community behind on PCs, they can talk to these sponsors and maybe get some sponsors to put in box PCs, standardized PCs for events, and have them ready for the events before they happen. That would be amazing. It kind of be like the gaming cafes they have in like Korea.
Oh yeah,
when they have like the PCs already set up, people just come in and play all the time. If we can have that for something like a tournament, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Because right now we're using like Gaming Generation. Like they're the ones who just have like just all the systems and stuff like that they just rent out to these events and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be dope if you could just, just go straight to the source. Like, hey, sponsor my event. We'll run it on this and this and this. Just give us the systems. Blase, blase, blase. Instead of like, Gaming Generation. Well, I guess that would suck for them. I mean, they probably have to figure out a way to keep in business. Not every tournament is probably going to be able to get the sponsorship and stuff. So I'm sure if MSI could find a way, not MSI, Gaming Generation could find a way to buy a lot of a certain type of PCs, then I mean, that'd probably work. But did you have something else here?
Oh yeah, like, I mean, when it comes down to it, like, fighting games are not that. To be honest, they're not that demanding. They're not to run a fighting game at like the top of like its game with all the graphics turned on. Look at the characters' reflections on the water with the shadows underneath the surface. It doesn't really, when it really comes, it doesn't really need that much power. You know what I mean? Like,
compared to other games, definitely.
Yeah. So I mean, like, if we were going to go that route and we were to say, like, let's say for all intents and purposes, instead of doing like a gaming thing that plays every game, why not just something that's completely narrowly focused on fighting games? Like they make builds specifically for playing fighting games and stuff. And those would probably be a lot cheaper than like paying for a system that's going to play every single game that's has the most top tier, like, you know, graphics cards, you know, I mean, especially if they're only going to be used for, you know, fighting games, you know.
On OMC, you might have a patent waiting on you. You might have a patent waiting on you. I would say that I did say that for all podcast. FG Box by MC
Like,
Major.
The Steam Deck for fighting, just
Steam
for
Deck
fighting
for
games.
fighting games.
Right? Can you imagine?
You know, my thing with this whole thing is just two things just come to mind. Like, it's just you would really probably want to get that sponsorship when it comes to the gaming events because, you know, like for example, these like Evo, they got all their basically color consoles and stuff from Gaming Generation. They were cycling through so many like PS4s, you know, like most of the times when they was going on breaks and stuff like that, you were seeing like people come in, take this PC out. I mean, this PS4 out because it's probably been played on for a long time. Switch it out with a fresher one that's updated and all that other stuff, blase, blase, and everybody go back to playing on that one. So it's like to do like super huge events because we know it's a thing in the FGC tournaments where they're like, yeah, we've been basically playing on this same PS4 for like 10 hours a day and it's over there screaming and, you know, it might kind of be slowing stuff down and everything and all that. So they were switching out stuff a lot. So we'd have to get to that point to where we have so many of these PCs that we could do that. And also another thing that will make me think that you would have to either have a lot of these PCs on deck to just be like, or have a IT team on hand to problem solve because let's just say something did happen, like the PC just decided like, oh yeah, you didn't unplug like 50 controllers today, so I'm gonna just change a random setting somewhere in here that y'all just got to figure out what's wrong with me now. Like either you're gonna have to have some people that knows what to do and troubleshoot it because you know most times like if a PC mess up, you see online and stuff like that. Some people take days to figure out what's going on. You know, especially with like their stream setups and everything like that. Like people, sometimes it takes a while to figure out these problems. So it would really need to be a point to where like something happened with a PC, you'd have to just be like, oh, don't even worry about it. Just take this one out, put another one in. They got everything we need. Or you'd have to have some people there to troubleshoot what's going on. So, because we know basically,
preferably both.
yeah, because we know basically with these systems, I mean, the PS4, PS5s, and stuff like that. I mean, it's rare unless you're just like running it in the ground or people just aren't like, desyncing their controllers that you really have issues with these gaming systems. I mean, they're made specifically for that, you know. But we know with PC gaming, anything can happen, you know. The PC should be sponsored by Kevin Garnett because anything is possible when it comes to these these PCs.
But the PC don't get tired.
But yeah, so I'm excited about it though. And another thing is just with these gaming systems, you don't really have to do a lot of work to optimize them. Like Furby has to take his time to like go in and optimize these things, each PC for the work exactly how he needs it to get the most out of it. You know, with the Xbox Series X, I mean, you can basically just plug in and go. I mean, some games are doing 120 frames per second. You know, there's really nothing that you got to go in and really do too much diagnostic and setting up and all this other stuff. So that's just another thing. It'll definitely be more work, I feel like, to implement this into the community, just basically because it's a PC. You know, it seemed like it'll be easier to just like have a tournament with all these PCs, and then next thing you know, it's just like, dang, this one over here, we didn't optimize it this type of way, and this, so we got to go and hurry up and do this for y'all start them. You know, it's just easier for things to go wrong. But other than that, I mean, I'm excited to see it happen where we can like find some ways to flush this out and everything because this pandemic, everybody is basically on team like PC. I mean, basically, most of the players, like top players and stuff like that. I mean, they are saddened when they have to go back from PC and be like, all right, let me dust off the old PS4 and practice PS4 offline for to get ready for Evo. I mean, they lament when that happens. So, but yeah, so that's my thoughts on it. I'm excited for it, but got to be realistic about the things that can come with it. Because yeah, NA versus EU, when something, there was only probably once or twice when there was an issue of hey, my controller, it's not seeming like it's registering correctly, and Forever went over there and handled it and everything went smooth. But that is a thing to where we're just gonna have to make sure that we have these people on deck that knows what to do when something happens. Because if a player is just hey, I'm trying to show up and play, they're not gonna know how to problem solve. So that's my take on it. Anybody else got anything to add?